My name is Nathan Kabanchin. I'm the tech support lead here at Design Point, as well as an application engineer, which many of you may know means we just wear many different hats. One of them being the Sherlock Holmes hat from time to time. I'll preface everything here with just a quick sort of personal warning. If you do hear some young children screaming in the background, don't concern yourself. With this season of working at home, I think we're all adjusting to the to different challenges here and there. And one challenge I think we're all going to have to undergo is possibly some audio disturbance in the background. So I'll apologize for that now, and hopefully it can provide us a little bit of comedic relief. With that said, let's jump into it. So the game is afoot. We're going to talk about how to improve your powers of deduction, basically how to approach sort of troubleshooting techniques that we undergo here at Design Point that we believe are pretty tried and true and practiced. And we're going to kind of go over the methods by which we would recommend doing that. So the first thing that seems like worthy of outlining is we're going to look at the content here. There's two sort of main sections that are worthy of note. The first is the tools that we and you can use as up and coming detectives in the world of SOLIDWORKS detection, and the method. So we're going to talk through each one of those. We've broken them into a couple of subpoints here. We're going to discuss the tools that are utilized first and foremost, and then we're going to go on and talk about the method that we would sort of recommend and how those tools fit into that method. So the first tool we're going to start discussing here is the SOLIDWORKS RX tool. So I think most of you who have engaged with support recognize that this is a tool that we bring up with relatively frequently, but there is a good amount of information in here that you can sort of engage with yourself to better understand what's going on in your own system. And we're going to touch on three of the what I believe to be more primary functions on it. Every tab that's in here is something that is always well worth some investigation. But if we focus on these things first and foremost, I think that we're going to get the best value out of it. So the first one would be the Home tab. On the Home tab, we have basically just a series of shortcuts here in that top section, from diagnostics all the way down through benchmark. Those effectively are just sort of quick links that would throw you to one of the other tabs. But all the way at the bottom here, we have these two SOLIDWORKS safe modes, inside of which there is a opening the software in a OpenGL mode, which basically is ignoring the tools and is ignoring the GPU that comes with your computer. So it's sort of taking an approach to opening SOLIDWORKS and identifying if it's something is graphic related initially. And then the second is opening SOLIDWORKS by bypassing the tools and options. So any of your mouse gestures, keyboard shortcuts, file locations, etc. It's going to just take everything and turn it back to its original install state and test to see if maybe one of those things is what's causing a potential hiccup. So that's what that portion of it does. Next thing that's worth looking at is that diagnostic tab. There is a lot of good information that can be gained from here, and whether or not you realize it, the diagnostics tab can also just serve as another location in which you can basically just get your system information. So I was looking at mine the other day. This gives you information on your, the manufacturer of the machine, can give you model number information, gives me information on my graphics card. If you are connected to the internet, which I wasn't at the time, it will give you your current diagnostic result on your driver status. So if your driver is up to date, or if it has found something over the internet automatically on a new driver, it can be located there. Runs down through a series of other information. Two things that are the most relevant, in my opinion, would be your driver status. So whether or not your driver is currently up to date, or if it's found something that's a little bit more newer. This is a great place to start that search. the manufacturer's website is obviously the next best place. And then the reboot, just understanding sometimes, if you're having some issues, coming in here and looking to see when the last time you rebooted was, tends to help paint a much better picture as to what's going on here inside the system. And then the last tab that I feel like is really relevant, it would be for self-diagnostic, is going over to the benchmark tool. The benchmark tool is a test that SOLIDWORKS basically performs on your machine. It's going to recommend that you basically are running no other software application, and what it will do is it will open SOLIDWORKS, it'll perform a series of tests, and it will record all of that information and put it into a place where you can basically compare your runtimes and your statistics against other people's machines who have run this diagnostic test. So what it won't do is it won't necessarily rank how good yours is doing. It's just going to report the statistics on how it did. So that's one of the tools. The next tool are your Windows tools. Now, heavy word of caution on these. If you're not comfortable utilizing these Windows tools, you obviously should proceed with a little bit of caution here. Neither one of these things are inherently scary or dangerous if you use them in respectable, and safe manners. But it is one of the tools that if you get into more and more SOLIDWORKS troubleshooting, these are the things that having a better grasp on is going to help kind of take that notch from the Watson's role into more of a Sherlock Holmes sort of approach. The command prompt over here on the left is one of them. Command prompt is basically where we can run specific tasks that are targeted to Windows applications. So looking for things like ipconfig will give us the address of your computer, the IP address. If we're looking at a network issue, we can run certain commands and prompts that might deal with launching certain software, stopping certain services, etc. The registry editor, that icon on the right over there, is another tool that we'll engage with that deals with sort of starting and stopping processes inside of Windows. It's just another tool that we can use and to basically make sure that we are editing certain settings inside of Windows that otherwise might be a little cumbersome to do in just the traditional manner. So those are some of the Windows tools that we can engage with. And then the last tool or series of tools is the knowledge base. So we're going to touch on a couple of things involving the knowledge base. The first, I think that's the most relevant is the knowledge base found in the customer portal. So if you log into the customer portal and you go into you log into your customer portal, underneath the My Support section of your customer portal, the very first link in there is the knowledge base. Now, what the knowledge base is it's a collaboration of basically all, I say all, but the vast majority of technical support cases and SOLIDWORKS bugs and issues that have been reported have been culminated and collected here. There's a series of solutions for these issues that pop up, as well as notifications on where a solution might be. So there are cases where a problem is still occurring, and this gives more or less an update on the status of what that problem is and where it exists in the process of being completed or a solution being found. When you go into the knowledge base, you'll be greeted with a screen like this. Simply all you need to do with engage with this tool is effectively just type into that search window there at the top, and you can start yielding some results specific to the subject matter you're looking for. Now, there are some cases that may not exist inside of here. There's also a little bit of a learning curve to getting familiar with this tool. being that the better you are at sort of searching databases, the better you'll get at getting the result you exactly want from this. So in some cases, typing in, problem with extrude feature will likely get you hundreds, if not more, results. Getting a little bit more finite and granular with your results is going to be better for getting better results. And obviously, phrasing can be a really big key to making sure you're getting some great results out of this. So in addition to the knowledge base that is provided from SOLIDWORKS, this is a resource that every customer who is on subscription and has access to his or her customer portal can get into. There's also other versions of the knowledge base that not only we as DesignPoint engages with, but I believe other companies do as well. One of them would be the collective internal knowledge base that a team can sometimes pull together. I'll personally speak to the importance that comes with sharing experiences from one of your colleagues to the next. Believe it or not, it can become a very good resource for quickly troubleshooting and executing answers on some of the most simple to even some of the most extreme sort of support or technical issues that you might have. And the reason why I call this a knowledge base is because that in an ideal world, that's what it becomes for you guys. What we're not talking about is tribal knowledge. And tribal knowledge is a circumstance wherein one person understands how a function works, and anytime you want the answer for how that works, you need to go to that individual. We're talking about a knowledge base. So that is a circumstance wherein the information that one person has, it's placed in a centralized location that everyone has access to. So that tribal knowledge now becomes a knowledge base, and it's communal. It's something that people can add to. It's a quick spot and convenient place to get referencing. So creating something like an internal knowledge base, I believe, is going to be a really good method for anyone who wants to consider themselves a really good detective in SOLIDWORKS. You're always going to want to keep a list of those known and consistent culprits and issues in a place that's easy to recognize, so you can always hop back to it. Here at DesignPoint, we follow this practice as well. We've got an internal knowledge base that's been, culminated between, at this point, maybe around 20 plus engineers over, a possible amount of, decade of SOLIDWORKS cases. And so we've got a relatively full set of information that we can kind of pull from if we believe something's sort of steering down that path. The other thing that we'll mention here on the right-hand side is Google. It's not just the tool that you guys might use when trying to execute a search on something for the first time. It's something that we'll use as well. And it's a tool, but we need to recognize it for what it is. It's a tool that is fast, and it will give us endless amounts of results, and it will also give us endless amounts of opinions. So we need to be intelligent, subjective, and strategic with how we utilize that as part of our knowledge base. There are absolutely some fantastic answers out there on Google. There are also, I think we're all well aware, some not so great suggestions or answers out there. The rule of thumb would always be if it's a circumstance or a step you don't feel comfortable taking, that's a great time to start bringing somebody else into the fold, either another colleague or a DesignPoint. So those are sort of the tools that we have at our disposal. So the next thing that we're going to shift and look at here is the method, or the process, if you will. So the first bit of it is hunting for those clues. Now, there's a series of questions that if you've engaged with us on tech support before, you'll probably hear come up. If not, you're probably hearing some flavor of it if it's not in these words exactly. But these are really good questions to be asking kind of for any troubleshooting, regardless of what it is. I wouldn't necessarily go about this in discovery of figuring out why your significant other might be upset. That that's, if you gain success from that, let me know. I'll begin trying it immediately. But until then, I would say that's one circumstance I might not apply it to. But as far as tech support is concerned, in SOLIDWORKS issues, I think this is still a pretty tried and true method. So these questions are, what is the end goal? When did the problem start? What changed since it began? Is the behavior consistent? Can we repeat it basically, or was it a one-time sort of thing? Is it specific to the file, or is it specific to the machine that we're dealing with? And was there an error code collected? Now, most of these do feel like they're pretty basic, but all of these things are important. And even if you are getting a hit on the first 2 questions or the first 3 questions, it is always going to benefit you to have an answer to all of them. So if you get a result on the first couple, that's amazing. Even if you get an error code right off the start, there's an error code here. Your inclination sometimes may just be, I'm going to go straight to the knowledge base, or I'm going to go straight to a resource that I have, and I'm going to look for that error code. That's a great method of attack. It's a very, it can provide some false negatives basically. So be wary with only taking one question and running with it. Highly recommend ask all the questions, get answers to all of them. That's really going to help you build a story here, build a case, because that's what we're doing. We're building a case so that we can look at the facts objectively and solve that case. So the next bit of it is the method. So method, again, seems like it makes a good amount of sense, but it's all in the way that it's applied. So first bit of the method is going to be try one thing at a time. Once you've gotten all your questions answered, the method portion of it starts to take place. You're going to do your research. You're going to find a potential answer, and more than likely, you're going to find many different answers, and you're going to just try one of them at a time. Don't start doubling up some effort. Take one answer you believe to be the best, that's the most applicable to what it is you're dealing with here, and you're going to try that just to see how it goes. Next thing you're going to make sure that you're doing is don't rush. There's an inclination that, and an understanding as well, that whatever's happening is holding you up from getting work done. It is slowing down your process. This is something that is, in some cases, it's vital that you get back to work as quickly and immediately as possible. And I understand that. But the moment we try to panic and rush and push something through is when details get missed. And that's when we've gone from solving this issue to putting a Band-Aid on this issue. So even if it stops in the immediate because we rush through it, it doesn't mean we've actually corrected what's going on there. So absolutely recommend, don't rush through the process. If you find a good answer, make sure you're applying that. Next thing is repeat any step and process as many times as you feel it's necessary. If you're not confident that a certain step was done right, or that a process felt like it should work but it didn't work, redo it. Don't discount it as a non-fix for you. Just restart the process. It is better to disqualify a good solution because you've exhausted it than to write a good solution off completely because you sort of rushed through it or you were uncertain about a specific step. So repetition is fine. It's okay, and it's part of the process. It's part of that method. The next thing would be take notes. I mean, we already talked about this a little bit earlier with the idea of generating this knowledge base, if you will. But take notes, take frequent notes on what it is you're doing. If you have a process or procedure that you're trying to follow through, it makes great sense to have a little notepad up or a Word document, and you're recording how every step went. And if it's a circumstance that you guys face regularly, creating a process document for it might even be worthwhile. Taking screenshots of it while you're going through it, highlighting things that that not only you might have to go through this, but somebody else. So eliminating some of that tribal knowledge and using the method as a means to not only record how things are going so you have a finite and exact way to reciprocate, you can get back to where you were, but also if it succeeds, you've now generated a process and something that you guys can always come back to and call upon if an issue comes up again in the future. And then the last bit of it would just be more research and like taking a little bit more time. So this comes down to a point where you've maybe tried a couple of things, you feel like you've tried maybe all the best answers, and you might be left with a couple of not so great answers at that point. That's expected. You know, every hard case to crack is definitely going to throw up a series of challenges, and some of them might just be your research has, your initial research wasn't full enough. What I'm hoping is that through the questions you got answered and through the method that we followed through up to this point, you now have enough ammunition to formulate a better search or formulate some better questions that you can use as input to get better results out of a troubleshooting or problem solving sort of method. So re-engaging with your knowledge bases, whatever that might be, you now should be armed with better phrases, better terminology so that you can speak more specifically to what the issue is. So at this point, you're more or less just sort of restarting the process a little bit. And then the last bit of the process is basically, it's an important part of the process. It's help, please. Recognizing that at some point, we're going to hit a wall. We're going to get to a spot where we recognize this is not, you know, I'm not being proactive at solving this. And I've sort of outlined over here my general rules of thumb as far as what I would consider to be healthy and appropriate amounts of like do it yourself, if you will. So if you are spending more than 30 minutes on trying to fix an issue or troubleshoot something, my first recommendation is go back to asking questions. If 30 minutes of like quick research and then some fast attempts at implementation of a solution, if that's not doing it for you, I think you need to go back to the beginning and ask those questions again. You know, when was this happening? Is there an error code? Is it repeatable, etc.? You know, go back to your questions. That's going to be the first thing. And I'd usually say the 30-minute mark is an appropriate time to just say, hey, something's not right about my input because the solution's not solved yet. Beyond that, if you are spending more than an hour, more than 60 minutes, I'm going to suggest that you start seeking additional help. So your knowledge base is always, it's a great resource. And in some cases, like your knowledge base, I say that word and you think immediately of an individual at your place of work and not necessarily a document or resource library, etc. That's a good time to start engaging with that person. You know, sometimes at that 60-minute mark, I'd recommend Design Point be one of those people that you consider seeking additional help from. But if you guys are confident and you know you're determined to be those Sherlock Holmes of your SOLIDWORKS issues, I'd say give it an hour. You know, an hour is a good enough time if you're getting good questions, you're following the method well. You should be churning up some results that are showing more and more promise as you kind of go through and recycle that entire process. So more than an hour, I'm going to say go find some additional help, seek some additional help. And then if you're spending 90 minutes or more on that, you need to start escalating. Now that means different things for different people and different companies. Escalation might be getting, you know, now is where you start really getting those SOLIDWORKS gurus inside of your own company involved. You know, it's reason enough that an hour and a half's worth of research and troubleshooting has not yielded you the result you're looking for. So it's time to get one of them involved. I'll usually give you the out and say that problem doesn't, you know, it's not just your problem. You can always call into support and help make it our problem too. I hope the image on the right resonates with some of you guys, because there's a mentality that troubleshooting is and can be pretty quick, and historically that is the case in some situations. But there are definitely moments where, speaking from my own experience, where I've had somebody call into support and give me a story that goes, hey, I've been looking at this problem for a couple of days now, and I'm hoping that you guys can just help me out. What I'd love to, have happening and assist you guys in getting back to work sooner is like 90 minutes seems like an appropriate amount of time for any one individual to have done troubleshooting sort of on their own if they've gone through that process before reaching out to somebody a little bit more experienced in this realm, if you will. So definitely, keep track of the time. That's kind of another big takeaway from this is the time at which you spend on this is time that you're not being productive. So we want you to be productive at troubleshooting. That's why, we provided these questions, these methods, and understanding those tools a little bit more. But if you're starting to hit a certain point, we want you guys to get an answer. And just because you're asking for additional help does not disqualify you from being that detective later down the road. If helped right, this new scenario just becomes a part of your knowledge base and equips you with troubleshooting all the better. So guys, that's it. It seems really short and sweet, but it really is that simple to become sort of the SOLIDWORKS expert and guru within your own company.